Today on The Well-Educated Artist, we are going to be capturing Bigfoot. Let's go.
So many people have an enduring fascination with Bigfoot. And for as long back as I can remember, I've heard stories about Sasquatch. And today, I'm going to capture the likeness of Bigfoot on canvas using reports and information from researchers and people who have claimed to have knowledge of this elusive cryptid. To start with, I am using an hexagonal canvas, which is an unusual shape, to allude to the idea that we are looking at something different, capturing the image of something possibly even extra dimensional. And so I began with a rough outline of my Sasquatch. He's going to be very hairy, and I have given him a sagittal crest, which is typical of a great ape. I'm also going to be adding a supraorbital tori, or an enlarged brow ridge that is typical also of the great apes, like gorillas, and also even of Neanderthal. So I am just sketching these in very roughly at the brow line. And I am going to add a few of the features just so that it's easier for me to paint and keep the painting in perspective. I'm going to be using acrylic today, not a very extensive palette, but you will see how Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, comes alive. Bigfoot is known by a lot of names. The earliest reports are from the natives of North America, usually from Alaska, the Pacific Northwest, and Canada. There are many names for Bigfoot, including Bush Indians, Hairy Men, Stick Indians, the Woodsman, Chompy, Skookum, and even Sasquatch, which is derived from the Salish or Hocomelan Sesqui, or Sasquatch is what we call them. And as you notice and see here, I've gone a more flatter nose, large nostrils, not as large as an ape or not as flat, because reports say that our Bigfoot does appear to be a man when they look him in the eyes. He seems to be human, a hairy man, as natives did indeed call him. So I am just going to be sketching fairly large eyes, a little bit far up onto the face, and I may change these a little bit. The eyes are very interesting. They are reported as different colors, as red or orange. The orange color is actually the color that gorillas, that golden orangey yellow color of gorillas. So I am going to be adding those eyes in with sort of an orange tint to them. The lips are just fairly large, and this is just a very rough sketch. He's sort of looking like a superhero right now, which is interesting in and of itself. Our Bigfoot is going to have quite a beard on him and lots of hair, which I will be doing with paint. Now, Bigfoot is said by researchers to be from 6 to 15 feet, usually around 8 or 9 foot tall. Now, the measurements are derived from different ways, but we're not going to be able to tell how tall our Bigfoot is from our painting. We're focusing mainly on the face. I will have to say that his shoulders and his neck will be more joined so that he would have forward-leaning posture, possibly that he would walk on his front arms, more like a gorilla with longer arms. And he also can stand, of course, upright. And so he'll have that more conjoined shoulder to neck area. So it'll be very thick. So it kind of moves straight from his neck into his shoulders. I'm just going to briefly draw on where his pupils would be in the middle of his eyes. And I'm also going to highlight where his very high cheekbones will be. He's mostly going to be covered with hair, and just the top part of his face has been reported to be bare. Now I'm using a brush here, just a number 2 brush to begin. A lot of my painting will be started with this, and I'm ready to go. These are simple acrylic paints using colors of brown, black, orange, yellow, actually several colors of brown, and also titanium white. I begin on using black and just roughing in where his hair is going to be. I want these as black undertones that I can build on. I'm also going to spray a little bit of water just to keep it wetter under the lights here. It's going to look a little spread out. and maybe a little bit messy at first, but it's just going to keep my canvas from getting incredibly dry or my paint drying out. As I'm laying down this black for the hair of my Sasquatch, and yes, it is hair rather than fur. That'd be true of the apes as well. They have hair rather than fur. Now, a researcher named Farnbach, who's supposed to be the expert on Bigfoot hair, says that Bigfoot hair does not have a medulla, and that's how you know it's Bigfoot hair. The only problem with that, I would say, is that blonde hair and fine hair in humans don't have a medulla either. That is something that is generally in coarser hair. So I'm not sure how they came up with that, in that we've never found a Sasquatch that we know of and have a definitive hair sample from Sasquatch to compare that to, and a lack of medulla does not mean that our creature is indeed a Sasquatch. It could be a human. For me, I have fine blonde hair. I could be related to a Sasquatch, so I'm not sure about that, but I am going ahead and putting all of this hair in, lots of hair, and the hair takes a long time to do, so I am still putting in hair. Now, an interesting thing about Sasquatch is they say that Sasquatch smells. He's often been referred to as a skunk ape in some circles, and some people who have claimed to see Sasquatch says that he smells like rotting flesh. We don't know why he smells that way. It's possible because of all of this hair that doesn't get washed, maybe, or some people have posited that it is a gland that emits this smell and it has this fear kind of reaction to it. It makes people fear and be afraid. And so, hey, maybe possible. Now I'm just drawing in the lips. I'm just going to put down a base coat of a brownish color as I continue to work on the hair, and I'll come back to the lips a little bit later. Now, I am going to be starting to work just on the face by laying down some color. And just a second. And you might wonder, what color will I choose to put on Sasquatch's face? Well, there's several options here. I am going to be laying down a lighter layer right now, but this is probably not the color I'm going to end on. So what color should Sasquatch's skin be? A lot of people report it to be black, more like an ape, or brown, or even reddish brown, and even as far as albino. So what about the skin tone? Is it going to be like the ape? Is it going to be more like early man or caveman? What would that look like? Or maybe native, since native people first reported Sasquatch, maybe it looks more like the wild man, the hairy man, and the natives would have looked more like the natives. So here you go. I've just laid down a very brief color. There's going to be a lot of work done, and it has more of a native feel. I decided to not go with the black color just because I wanted more contrast with my fur. But yes, there could be Sasquatch of different colors, like there are people of different colors. I don't know, but I'm going with the lighter color, actually more of a native feel to it as I'm adding color later. I just put down a base color and I filled in my eyes so that you did not have hollow holes, which kind of creep me out as I'm painting. So, and I've put on some of his eyebrow, but I will be doing lots more eyebrow. And I'm using a fan brush here, lots of hair. The hair is a long process. We're putting in some contrast here with his hair for him to be a little bit more distinguished gentleman here, and so that he's not just very one-dimensional. So lots of hair. Now I'm using a very fine brush to get lots of little hairs right around the widow's peak. There's lots and little tiny hair roots, and it takes a while to do all of these, but the detail is really awesome when you're done with it. So lots and lots of little tiny marks with a very small brush. Now, especially from upside down, he's reminding me of Land of the Lost, and that's the 1970s Land of the Lost, not Will Ferrell's remake of Land of the Lost. He's sort of reminding me of Chaka from Land of the Lost, who was the early man there. So maybe my Sasquatch is looking a little bit more Neanderthal than actually ape-like. So that's all good, I guess. Lots of little hairs on the cheek, the very high cheekbones, and right around the nose. He's definitely a hairy man, or a wild man, as the natives would call him. And I have to really put in lots of unruly eyebrows. He's definitely not going to be waxing those eyebrows. So lots and lots and lots of little hairs. Add a little more detail to the lips, and especially hair over the lips, so that he looks a little bit more scraggly there. I'll be adding more to the lips later. I don't know that my Sasquatch looks a lot like the Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967, Sasquatch, the only one really found in Bluff Creek, California. I am using a very jacked up brush to do more hair and get more distinguished looking marks into the hair and a little bit more contrast. He's going to be looking a little bit more like a distinguished gentleman, my sexy Sasquatch here. And you can let me know what you think about the Patterson-Gimlin film, whether you think that was real or it was just a hoax back in 1967. We really haven't caught any action from Sasquatch, at least any real film, even though we have cell phones today. But in 1967, they rented a old camera and were able to do that. So let me know how you feel about that. Is Sasquatch real? Now I'm adding a little bit more gray hair to his coat here. So he looks maybe a little bit older. I'm also going to be working around the mouth and the lips, adding some color, some pink into the lips, his luscious lips. Sasquatch is supposed to make a howl. Sounds sort of like a crying lady. And he also has that as communication, along with wood knocks, researchers say, to communicate. And I am now working on the eyes. And his eyes are fairly large, I have to say. I want them to really be the windows of the soul and show that wild man. Would you be afraid of this guy if you met him in the forest, or does he look friendly enough? The eyes take a while to do here with the orange color, often associated with the eye shine or even orbs when the Sasquatch is around. So is the Sasquatch something of a forest spirit, or an interdimensional spirit, or even alien? So who is Sasquatch, and why do you see unusual phenomenon around Sasquatch? The native stories say that the hairy man, wild man Sasquatch is both a forest helper in some instances for some stories, and other Native Americans say that he's more of a trickster and he can lead you astray in the forest. So which one is he? What do you think about that? If Sasquatch is real, what is his purpose? Where is he from? And how does he function? So I'm continuing to work on the eyes and really adding some detail and trying to make them look more realistic. And being that they are sort of wide, I'm just going with it. I like the idea of really seeing the Sasquatch through his eyes. I'm going to fill in the pupils and blacken them out a little bit so that the reflections dance. And I'm probably about done with the eyes, or at least the middle part of the eye, the iris and the pupil. I am, however, going to add more hair. I'll get sick of hair and then I will add more hair. Just keep on adding it in. I'm adding a lighter color to the eyebrow just for highlight, and I'm also going to do some definition of the darker color above the eye and to the side of the eye for the eyelid. He doesn't really have very defined eyelids, but I'm also going to be adding in more of the lighter color to the jawline and to the beard and to the side, and adding lots of little wispies. My Sasquatch is not perfect. There's a lot of wind. If you hold out and see my background, then we've got some wind blowing. We're on the edge of a forest, and we need lots of little wispies. I don't want my Sasquatch to be perfect. I want him to have some realism to him. I'm also going to define the eyes more. You'll see that I go back and forth, but just a little bit more definition on the eye. And then I am going to work more on the face, since I had just a rough color on the face, if I can ever get done with all the little wispies that my Sasquatch needs. It's okay. So we're going to add some brown under the eye and some shadow. One thing about me is I tend to put a lot of color on and then I don't like it and I'll take it back off. So here I'm putting lots of brown down, and then I'm taking it back off again, smoothing it out and then adding it back on in layers. So I'm going to go around the nose and darken around the nose and flatten it out just a little bit. Still a fairly round nose. It's very prominent on the face, more human than ape. And I'm just going to add more definition along the nose and the brow ridge and right under the eyes. And I think I'm about done. I'm about to put my brush down and work on that background. Yep, I think he's about done for now. And I'll work on the background. Question remains, where does Bigfoot live? Where do you find Bigfoot? Well, I want a background that is sort of eerie and very mystical. And so I'm going to be using a lot of blues for my forest. A lot of times, Bigfoot is seen at dusk, or he's seen on the edge of a forest, or edge of a field. Might even be seen crossing a road. But the place that I want to have for my painting just has a very ethereal quality about it. It might just be a little bit kind of creepy. But I'm going to be softening a lot of my colors with a paper towel. And it looks like clouds. This is not going to be sky. It is going to be a forest. And this yellow is going to be a field, actually. So I'm going to be putting my yellow down for the edge of my field. And you'll be able to see sort of in the distance the trees and the bushes that make up the forest. So I am just going to be putting that in fairly quickly. I once asked my dad, who's just an avid hunter. He will hunt anything. If you know him, and the people who do know him know only thing he talks about is hunting. If you know him, you can leave a comment below on how that is so true. And he's never seen Bigfoot that I know of, but one thing he'll say about watching the shows like Finding Bigfoot or Expedition Bigfoot, which actually one of the better ones is Expedition Bigfoot, or Mountain Monsters, or any of the other shows that look for Bigfoot, is he always says they make so much noise, there's no way that anything would remain around. They would always run off to as much noise as the people are making and the camera people are making. I always thought that's so funny. And I always said if there was a Bigfoot, my dad would have bagged it and tagged it already. But he lives in North Carolina and he has never seen Bigfoot, I can tell you that. But what he does say for people who think, well, no one's ever got a body of Bigfoot or found the bones of Bigfoot, the hunters have not shot him, or we don't have any footage, he will say there are lots of wild animals out there that aren't supposed to be where they are, and they are, or things that are supposed to be extinct, and they have found them. So to not always rule out that there may be a cryptid like Bigfoot out there. Now I am creating a pine tree, just a little pine frond that's going to kind of come down to signify that Bigfoot is often found in big pine forests, often like where the redwoods are located. So there are lots of pine trees. Whether it's a deciduous forest or mainly a pine forest, this is what these pine fronds are going to signal. So I am just putting some of those up there at the very top that are bending down. He's sort of at the edge of the forest, and you're seeing now the edge of the field, and I'm just going to be putting some shadows in at the edge of my field, or the edge of my forest and the edge of my field here. So we do have sunshine out there on the forest, but the woods are pretty creepy and dark. Now I need some woods on the other side of my painting, and I'm just going to put in some tree trunks, some hints of a tree trunk. This is sort of a misty forest. Maybe it's a misty morning. I like to always tell a story when I'm doing my paintings, but that it would reflect on where Bigfoot lives. You pull out my fan brush to do some trees and just blend that in, just to have that little bit of a touch that there are trees back there and that there's light coming through. And that's indeed what I am doing. Now I'm also going to put in back here a tree structure. I will show you when I do that. Bigfoot is said to maybe communicate where his territory is, since he's a territorial being, according to researchers. I love that they're researchers, but we don't really have any of these beings to literally research. But I'm going to put in a tree structure which may indicate the marking of a territory. And so that's what I'm doing right now. There's just a crisscross of trees back here. I thought about hiding a Bigfoot back there, but you can just imagine that there is a Bigfoot somewhere back in this misty forest. Okay, I'm going to go back in here and just add a few flyaways to my Bigfoot's hair where the background paint has touched, just so he stands out a little bit more from the background. And here he is. Meet Bigfoot in his natural habitat. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment about what you think about Bigfoot. Is he real? Is he not? What does he look like? Have you seen Bigfoot? So let me know. Thanks for watching.